Hello, my dear friends. My name is Harold, and welcome to The Sanctum. We have a very interesting topic that we're going to talk about today. And that topic is we're going to talk about the Tibetan death yogas and why they exist in the first place. So first of all, these practices are very esoteric and are thought in the lineages of Tibetan Tantra. So in this video, we're going to talk about two of the main death yogas, what we call Bardo yoga, as well as Phowa yoga. And there's a third kind as well, which I will briefly mention, which is the forbidden death yoga, which is a very interesting topic and a thought to some of the Tibetan masters. So how and why did the Tibetans develop and practice death yogas? So first of all, what they realized in the Tibetan tradition or in the tantric tradition is that when an individual is born, they experience daytime and nighttime. And this daytime-nighttime cycle takes place as life goes on. So they experience day, night, day, night, day, night, day, night. And this cycle is put to an end through the experience of death. So what the Tibetans believe is they believe that at the time of death, there's a transition that takes place and that consciousness can live on beyond death. And if a practitioner is trained well, they're able to have a certain control over this transition and decide what sort of birth they wish to experience in the next lifetime, because of course they believed in reincarnation, or the ability to achieve enlightenment beyond or after death. That is, if the practitioner has not already attained enlightenment in their incarnation, they're able to achieve it beyond death. So this was the primary reason for the death yogas. So let's talk about the first death yoga, which is called Phowa. So the word Phowa in Tibetan can be translated to mean consciousness transference. And this was a practice that is done while the individual is alive. And it involved the use of various mantras, recitations, visualizations, certain kinds of breathing, placing syllables on certain places of the body, what in Indian Tantra is called nyasa, but the Tibetan version, to be able to generate a certain energy and open up the channel to be able to push the consciousness out through the top of the head at will into what the Tibetans called a pure land, or a heaven, or a place where enlightened beings resided. And the point of doing this is so that when death is approaching, or when a practitioner was about to die, the death yogas would be practiced so that consciously they were able to eject themselves from the top of their head, leading to a conscious transition, likely into one of these heavenly realms, where they're able to be in the presence of divine beings and Buddhas, and therefore be in the right condition and place to reach enlightenment beyond death. Sometimes even ceremonies were conducted by experienced masters and lamas for people who are dying to practice this Phowa yoga, to be able to fire off their consciousness through the top of their head, leading to a conscious death process. So even in Tibet, those who practice and have mastered the practice of Phowa yoga, there are certain physical signs and characteristics that show when a particular practitioner has attained mastery over that particular death yoga. Sometimes there would be blisters on right at the top of the head, the fontanelle, that point right there where the crown is. And sometimes even the fontanelle begins to open up, which is kind of a soft place at the top of the skull that is kind of open when a baby is born, but begins to close as the baby grows up. Now, after the practice of Phowa over a certain period of time, this begins to open up again. And in the Tibetan tradition, sometimes they even take a little piece of reed or a piece of wheat and put it in there, so that you can see Tibetan monks and masters walking around with a little reed sticking out of their head, which was a symbol and a sign that they have attained mastery over Phowa. And this physical area in their head is open, and they're able to shoot their consciousness off the top of their head. Very interesting stuff. These yogas are now taught to the public by lamas in order to preserve the tradition. So the second death yoga is called Bardo yoga. So the word Bardo can mean an intermediate state or intermediary state of awareness. And this is akin to the state of awareness that is there beyond the time of death and before rebirth. This is an intermediary state. So like this, there are other bardos that we experience in our life. Even when we go to sleep, there's a transition between wakefulness and to the point in which we fall asleep. This is also considered in the Tibetan tradition a bardo. So what Bardo yoga is a practitioner is taught to become aware of the transitionary states of awareness that we go through in life. And according to the Tibetan tradition, when death is approaching, those fleeting last moments of death, we undergo an experience internally of passing through the four elements of earth, air, water, and fire, and akasha, and finally to what we call the clear light, through the emptiness, states of emptinesses. So this clear light, which is the ground or the essence of reality, in Bardo yoga, the practitioner is taught to recognize this particular essence of reality and rest there, so that at the point of death, they're able to recognize the dissolution of the four elements and the fifth element that takes place. And when the clear light is experienced, they're able to unite with that, leading to enlightenment. So that is in an accomplished practitioner, where they're able to recognize that and unite, thereby freeing themselves from reincarnation, or giving them the option of choosing a particular birth that they may wish to take place. In the same way, if they fail to recognize that, they may find themselves in a realm where there may be particular deities or wrathful beings. Now, this is the second opportunity for them to practice Bardo yoga, in being able to recognize that awareness rests there and be unaffected by the fear of this particular experience. And that too can lead to enlightenment and transcending the limitations of that experience. And if they fail to recognize that, there's still a final test which can be used to choose a more meritful birth, where they can create the right conditions to find the Dharma once again and fulfill the necessary practices to perhaps reach enlightenment in their next lifetime. So these two are the main death yogas, and they are death yogas that are now even taught to the public by qualified lamas. You can find this very easily now. These are two practices that I have learned myself and are very, very powerful. But there is a third forbidden yoga that is not taught to the public. However, there are many writings on this particular practice, and this particular practice is called Drongjag, and is taught to various masters, and it's kept very, very secret due to the ability to misuse this particular practice. But however, it's used for very specific purposes in the Tibetan tradition, and this technique involves being able to transfer your consciousness into the body of another. So for example, therefore taking over their body and being able to live within the body of that person. And this may be used in the Tibetan tradition if there was a very highly accomplished master or lama whose body has begun to decay and is about to die. However, there is something that they still need to teach, and they need to transmit that wisdom. So a younger lama, maybe in their 20s or 30s, might say, hey, take my body, I'll go, and you can continue to teach within my body. And therefore, this practice would be used by the master to transfer their consciousness into the younger body, thereby taking over that body and being able to live on and teach transmit the lineage that they have to offer. So these are all very interesting practices and rather powerful, sacred and secret practices that were taught and are taught in the Tibetan tradition. And soon I will make videos on the daytime practices and the nighttime practices of Tibetan yoga as well. The daytime practices include what we call tumo, as well as illusory body yoga, and the nighttime practices involve dream yoga and what we call clear light yoga. So for that reason, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe, and stay tuned for these videos that are going to come up soon. So thank you, take care, and I shall see you very soon. Peace.